This is Kingston, a vibrant, muscular city, capital of a proud nation, a proud people. There are painful memories of slavery and racism here, but also a defiance of spirit that came with the first Africans and today sets this nation apart. It's a defiance that saw slaves on sugar plantations endure with dignity British cruelty. The most unruly slaves were hung from a gibbet in a man-trap for days as a lesson to others. And over here is an array of shackles and restraints used to keep slaves in line. Look at this. It's a tongue restraint. This metal plate would sit on top of the tongue and the whole thing would be held in place around the lower jaw with a lock. So it meant that a slave who was perhaps force-fed human excrement as a punishment wouldn't be able to spit it out. There is unease here that UK commemorations marking the end of the slave trade are too focused on white abolitionists like William Wilberforce and don't acknowledge the effect on the morale of the British of numerous slave rebellions. That Britain is playing up its role in helping to end the trade and downplaying its role in slavery itself. Jamaica's Prime Minister, in a rare interview, told me Parliament is discussing the issue of reparations and that in this bicentennial year there is no statute of limitations on genocide.
Our ancestors were packed in ships like you're packing sardines in a sardine can. How anyone dare to tell us, descendants of slaves, that we are to forget it? Oh no. That was a crime against humanity.
Perhaps that's the price Britain must pay, that it will never be allowed to forget what it did. It is a heavy price, the burden of history, fitting perhaps for a monumental crime. Clive Myrie, BBC News.
And fuel for domestic cooking and a building material. This is where the juice is transferred directly from the press into the clarification vat. And the solids taken off the top, the sediment taken off the bottom, and the syrup reduced in successively smaller coppers until it starts to granulate. And then we can transfer that into hogsheads to cool and transport to market.
Work in the boiling house is hot, dangerous, and highly skilled.
Should we move away from the heat? The slaves are allowed to sample the syrup while it's hot. Once we start the cooling.
Water, bring the water. This man to the hospital. You, take his place, take his place. Back to work, everybody, back to work. Back to work.
Each year, Summerley's plantations produce approximately 450 hogshead barrels of sugar and more than 200 large containers of the sugar byproduct, rum. During the 18th century, 820,000 West African men, women and children are transported to an early death in Jamaica. Thousands more die at sea.
Fine cargo?
Yes, a good lot.
Slaves are a planter's most expensive outlay. They cost anything from £5 to £100 each, depending on age, gender, health and skills, and the rise and fall of sugar prices.
No smallpox?
No, not in this lot.
Good.
They are traded at auctions or scrambles.
Up, on your feet, on your feet. Up, come on your feet.
A scramble is a brutal free-for-all, in which the planters literally fight for those they want to buy.
The Negroes from the more popular African countries are soon snapped up no matter what the expense. The more indifferent ones may only be sold by offering credit or reducing the price. They're the ones who are most likely to fall sick, even though when they left their homeland they were most probably healthy and strong.
The indifferent ones are called refuse slaves. They are often abandoned in the streets to die. Summerlee names his new acquisitions. New slaves have to be broken in or seasoned into a life of slavery.
Seasoning a new slave takes the best part of 4 or 5 months. And out of every 4 African slaves, scarcely one produces a really efficient worker.
Almost a third of seasoned slaves die within the first 3 years, most from disease, overwork, or simply depression.
The best slaves are the ones we breed on the plantations. They are born into the state of slavery and don't complain.
Something in my heart, like a stream running
First hand with the life in Jamaica. Outside harvest time, they rarely worked in the field after sunset, which was never after 7. So from then until 6 the next morning, and every Sunday, their time was at their absolute command.
Something in my heart, like a stream running down.
Self-sufficiency is encouraged, particularly when America's war for independence from Britain creates food blockades. The slaves have to grow their own food, and many go hungry.
Labour and fuel for domestic cooking and a building material.
This is where the juice is transferred directly from the press into the clarification vat, and the solids taken off the top, the sediment taken off the bottom, and the syrup reduced in successively smaller coppers until it starts to granulate, and then we can transfer that into hogsheads to cool and transport to market.
Work in the boiling house is hot, dangerous, and highly skilled.
Should we move away from the heat? The slaves are allowed to sample the syrup while it's hot. Once we start the cooling.
Water, bring the water. Get this man to the hospital. You, take his place, take his place. Back to work, everybody, back to work. Back to work.
Each year, Summerlee's plantations produce approximately 450 hogshead barrels of sugar and more than 200 large containers of the sugar byproduct.
We are from the Riverfront City Mission, and we have a lot of needs here in this community.
I will never leave. I will never leave.
As many of you all must know that we have the Riverfront City Dump that is still in the community.
I will never leave. I will never leave you, children.
We have kids here that are in need, that their parents are jobless. Some parents who have a proper home here in the city, but we're just healing out to you guys over there for some help.
A love that has no end. I will never leave. I will never leave you, children. I will never leave you alone.
from rivers and meadows. You know, I'm living in this community for many years, and in this community we really need a lot of help for the children, them, adults, or elderly people. Some people they cannot walk, they need wheelchairs, they don't have a proper bed to sleep on, they don't have a proper facilities, and we really need your help. And we really need help in the library. I really need to also have a library.
Children, I will never leave you.
police are gunning down people because it comes like a war. It's like a war.
So you have a lot of violence because there are young feuds, turf wars.
In Jamaica's poorest communities, thousands find themselves caught between the gangs and violent policing.
And when people are shooting, what do you do?
Get flat, make sure your kids them get flatter.
The police force here is one of the most lethal in the world. In 2007, they killed 272 people. Ravin Thompson was one of them.
It was just a regular Friday night in the Whitfield town. You have music here, music there, kids out. Each and every one outside socializing. But
Ravin was shot not far from here, caught in the crossfire as police pursued a suspect. No police officer has been charged with his killing.
there is never a day past that I don't tell Ravin that Mommy loves you. As big as it was, I still sing his nursery rhyme to him.
But policing these streets can be a high-risk job. Each year, several officers are killed in the line of duty. When it erupts, it affects everybody in the community.
All of those schools will get problem due to violence. School can't keep for days because of violence. Kids can't get to go to school. Teachers can't get to come to school just because of violence.
Breaking the cycle of violence and poverty isn't easy when entire communities are marginalized and stigmatized.
If you want a good job, and if you come in from the garrison, they say maybe you're carrying that type of influence in their workplace.
Amnesty International calls on the Jamaican government to protect the rights of all Jamaicans and create a comprehensive public security plan to stop police killings and end criminal violence.
I always keep saying that the fight against crime and the promotion of human rights is one and the same.
If you don't get to the root and source of a situation, you can't deal with it.